Back again for part two. I had to talk about more about Infinity War actually, so I didn't get the message across very well, except for what I was trying to say about the flawed realization. But there was other things that needed to be said about Thanos and Gamora, where you had each stone has a price and a name on them. So one thing I saw about each stone, the Power Stone, which is purple, the Space Stone, which is blue, the Reality Stone, which is red, the Soul Stone, which is orange, the Time Stone, which is green, and the Mind Stone, which is yellow. Um, Everything about what Thanos is based on this approximation of what he's able to give up. All this stuff, power, space, reality, soul, time, mind, they're all constructions of something that he doesn't want anymore. At least doesn't want a power over to hold over in that way. So power is now essentially his because he's given up on his power of himself just being selfish in a way. His indifference is kind of like his reason for power that he does have actually versus the power that he lost by not being selfish and self-consumed in his own. And the space is the fact that he's able to have no trace of just staying in one space, obviously. So his space is everywhere because he doesn't keep to one space. His reality is anything he wants to make now at this point. Everything. It doesn't matter. He can create his indifference, and I think that's what allots him his understanding and his grace in what he's trying to create in the world or get rid of in the galaxy, the whole universe. The soul. That's the important one between Gamora and him. Gamora is wrong in his indifference because she says at one point that she gets mad at him, frustrated when they're getting that soul stone. Tells him, you've lost because you don't love. You can't love. But that's the thing about it. She ignored it. The internal answers are not the same as the external answers. So because he's seeking all these stones, it took away from her image of him taking care of the situation they had growing up. So everything's back to the beginning. In Gamora's eyes, that's what's happened now. You don't care about anybody. You don't love because this is what you're doing. But his indifference in this situation does not stagnate the relationship he's already sacrificed to create the one with Gamora. He didn't need to. He didn't. Maybe he didn't want to, but maybe he felt a choice and a decision there when he saved her and brought her along with him. Maybe there's a personal achievement in that too, but there is a selflessness in that even if there's so much indifference in the whole. Which is what I mean by the internal answers versus the external answers. They don't necessarily always have to align. It's like if I like a certain kind of music and you don't. Doesn't mean they have to align. I ignored my destiny once. That's what he says at this point when they're getting the stone in Vermeer or something. I can't pronounce the name. Anyway, and then lets her go. That's aside. And there was another point of Jax made a point, and I wanted to bring this up in here because I really felt it. That it's completely right that this assumption and creation, the labels of being indifferent to be evil, which is a very constructed form. If you're being indifferent, you're wrong. See, and I've seen the cartoons of it too, being a centrist or something like that. When you talk about politically, even you get that same sort of thinking, like we just need to debate, when that's not really the answer some are giving. And that's the thing about any construct in a system, in the social systems. You're going to always have those answers of like, why is this person indifferent to this? Why aren't they picking a side? And when he says something, what he says to Tony Stark, when I respect you, Tony. When I'm done, half of humanity will still be alive. He says before that too about bringing balance, and that there is an indifference to that statement. Even in this one, when he's talking to Tony at the end there's an indifference in that. And the label shouldn't be there about being evil. Yeah, it shouldn't. But at the same time, there's things holding bound. Jack's talked about this in the comments of my previous one. That's why I put part 2 now. Things are not supposed to be easy or hard. That's all I'm going to say right now. When we're holding bounds up in anything, it's easier to understand something if we put a label on it. Well, first, that's the biggest problem in the book right there of life. When you put something as easy or hard. First off, that has no existence in this. It's immaterial. It only comes in material, if you think about it. Video games have difficulty settings. Books have a reading level. So everything in material form has that. Everything in immaterial, what we are, doesn't have that. You don't, a penguin doesn't go, man, this life is hard. There's no level of, life where it's like, this one's difficult, this one isn't, I'm sure we could assert that, and that's the problem. We're asserting positions on things, which does create the idea of saying that things are easy or hard. It goes back to what Jack said in the previous comment, which is it's erasing and minimizing individuality. And is that the goal? But is that the goal? Do we want to erase and minimize individuality? Is that the goal? Because that really doesn't do much for anybody then. That doesn't really create a civilization, really. That takes away the idea of what civilization was created for. So yet again, the idea of the Greek Empire, Roman Empire, what Thanos is doing is like the exact intricate detail of what every system did. You had someone in power doing that. Now, I don't really consider it an evilness. There is an indifference. And an indifference does not mean evil. An indifference could mean so many different things. And it does. And it should mean so many different things. It should not mean one thing. So different becomes evil and demonized. If it's too different. Overall, I wanted to bring up those things because I felt like Infinity War really spoke about these things consistently throughout the film. And it's hard not to kind of bring up those things without saying, like, what affected me about it? Well, the whole thing affected me. The idea that Thanos and Gamora have a relationship that has to be noticed. For Gamora's side, she has to know this Thanos is caring for her. And that's not the situation at hand. Well, of course not. Because if you don't believe it, it's not real. He believes in everything he's doing. Even with his indifference about it, he still believes in it. That's the thing about it. Everything he's saying has a belief behind it. And I could bring up No Country for Old Men because that really stands by it too. So if you make one mistake, yes, you're going to get counted out for it if you're indifferent. So that's what the difference, I think, is in this story too. That his mistakes are what's catching up with him as Thanos. Because he has mistakes. His biggest one is Gamora. How he's treated that now. There is an external and internal different answers. And that's true. So the mistake is more about what you're going to do now. You got a second time. There's no such thing as second chances. And to me, that part where he throws Gamora out is the point of saying there is no second chances here. I've made my sacrifice. What have you done? And the sacrifice wasn't there either. So it's important to notice that about indifference. There's a sacrifice in that. And that's what I do care about in Thanos there. So that's it.